Hi everybody, welcome to another podcast of the Black Celts. And I had an inquiry question come in, and it came in from a student, and they asked if there's one piece of evidence that you can use when someone tries to debunk this theory that people of color inhabited these British Isles and Ireland in antiquity. I would say that very, very interesting book called The Description of the Western Isles of Scotland, 1703. That's the date it was published by a man called Martin Martin. Strange name, Martin Martin. He was so good they had to name him twice. But what he wrote was good. Again, this is 1703. This is before the United Kingdom became the United Kingdom. Before Scotland and England were united under the crown to become United Kingdom. So 1703, that's good. We got the entire text. So let me just read that out. Okay? So, that's the time when the English are exploring Wales, Scotland, Ireland. They're exploring their own backyard, So they have anthropologists. So they're exploring it in the same way they explored Africa and Asia, etc. They're writing in the same way. It's quite interesting. A little bit honest though, so you have to listen to this one. The inhabitants of the Isle of Skye are generally well proportioned. Their complexion is for the most part black. They are not obliged to art in forming their bodies, for nature never fails to act her part bountifully to them, and perhaps there is no part of the habitable globe where so few bodily imperfections are to be seen, nor any children that go more early. I have observed several of them walk alone before they were 10 months old. That's page 194. Quick reminder is 1703. The way they wrote and the way they talked was a bit different type of English. Obviously English language constantly evolves. So this is old type of English. Right, let me get back to this. Here is another castle belonging to the Duke in the north side of the isle. There is a harbour for barks and boats. The Isle of Arran is the Duke of Hamilton's property, a very small part excepted, and made part of the Diocese of Argyll. The inhabitants of this island are composed of several tribes. The most ancient family among them is by the natives reckoned to be the MacLouis, which in the ancient language signifies the son of Louis. They own themselves to be descended of French parentage. Their surname in English is Fullerton. The inhabitants of this isle are well proportioned, generally brown, and some of black complexion. They enjoy a good state of health and have a genius for all callings. The natives here are very well proportioned, being generally of black complexion and free from bodily imperfections. They speak the Irish language and wear the plaid and the bonnet, and as other islanders. The island of Jew, that's J-U, lies to the west of Jura, from which it is separated by a narrow channel. It is 24 miles in length from south to north and 18 from east to west. There are some little mountains about the middle of the east side. Page 239. The Isle of Colonial is 4 miles in length, from east to west and about a mile in breadth. The mould is brown and sandy on the coast and affords but a very small produce. Through the plough they ground 3 times. The middle is rocky and healthy, which is the most places is prettily mingled with thick evergreens of juniper and cat's tails. The cattle bred here are cows, horses and sheep, all of a low size. The inhabitants are generally well proportioned and of a black complexion. They speak only the Irish tongue, page 248. Okay. Interesting. Again, make of it what you will, but he's gone to the Western Isles and he's really just recorded what he saw. And again, it's I've written, the reader should note that Martin is very particular in his description of skin color. Some are brown, some are black, while others are compared to the inhabitants of neighboring islands and are white. The observation he made about skin color in the Hebrides well over 300 years ago was before mass migration associated with the Industrial Revolution. Now, again, the point that I'm making there in the Black Celts is, in the Industrial Revolution within Europe, of course, right? So in Britain, you had a movement from the countryside to the big cities, So people would flock from all over the place to Birmingham, to London, to the Cardiff, Belfast, etc. So you had a movement of people. Now he's talking about before that period of time, when people, generally speaking, lived and died in their own little neighborhoods, in their own little areas. There was a great consistency there. Their great grandfathers lived there, etc. So his observations are very valid because he's talking about the people who are indigenous to that area. Give you an example here. I've got on page 110. The same can be said regarding South Wales, where 500,000 English migrated into the area during the Industrial Revolution of the coal industry. Towns such as Fleur-de-Lys in South Wales Valley were settled in the 17th century by the Huguenots that had fled from France, while South Pembrokeshire, further west, is known as Little England. Henry I and Henry II planted a large number of Flemish people into the area. Professor Harold Carter, quoting the Chronicles of the Welsh Prince, states that the original inhabitants were driven away by force. As a result, Flemish became the main language for some time until it was ousted by English. So that's kind of interesting. 17th, 18th centuries, Pembrokeshire, original inhabitants driven out. Flemish people were planted there, still spoke Flemish in that part of southwest Wales for quite a long time, and then eventually that became replaced and dominated by the English language. So again, we get this idea of how populations change, how language change happens. Yeah, but the people are still genetically and ethnically the same. They just displaced and they just gone somewhere else. So that's kind of interesting, and it makes you think. Well, in 1703, Martin went to the Western Isles. He went to several different islands, and what I like about his work is, because when I first read it, I thought, as a lot of people reading it will think, maybe he just meant a little bit swarthy. Maybe, you know what? No. Because what he is saying is, if you read the text, read his own words, he's saying some are black, right? And then these other people he came across were brown. And then these other people who he came across were white. So you can't really say he just meant swarthy. He meant like an Italian. No. It's very clear. Very clear. 1703, man, even then you had people of color on this island. And I think that's interesting. That is incredibly interesting. Now, for you students of anthropology, imagine you have this industrial revolution. You get this change in mobility of people. People can actually travel because the railways were being built, yeah? So you can go from London to Scotland. You can move where the jobs are. You've got people being pushed off the land because obviously it's a hierarchical country, class system. Those people pushed into the factories, the working classes were created and they're pushed into the factories, etc. They're seen as a commodity. Very interesting. But what you've got before that time of that population movements, you actually got these records here that say you had black and you had brown and you had white, and that's in his own words, you see. So it wasn't a fair-skinned Englishman traveling amongst people who were maybe a little bit tiny more, one shade different to him. No. You got this Englishman traveling around saying, oh, black, oh, that brown, that's white. That's evidence. That's clear cut. You cannot argue against that, to be honest with you. There is no argument against it. So that means that this country, Britain, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, has always the people have always been different colours. The indigenous people have been different colours, and they started off dark, and with time and with mobility and industrial revolution, also don't forget social factors such as racism. Okay, hierarchical country. Think about it. Yeah, you have the royal family, you have your earls and your dukes and so on. Okay, for you in America, you're saying what's an earl, what's a duke, what's those? They're basically warlords of the 13th century who managed to kind of back the winning side. So they backed the monarch in the 13th century or something. The monarch says, okay, you can have Devon and you can have South Glamorgan, name it after yourself. Again, you just got a bunch of warlords who were then rewarded for being on the winning side of the battle of that particular king, right? And that's how they formed the hierarchy. But what's the and obviously they would have been have more French Norman blood as well, etc. There would have been some ethnic differences between them and the indigenous people, etc. So you had the indigenous, and then you had the Angles and the Saxons who came and Jutes, and then you would have had people like Danes and Normans and so on, right? The regular ones mentioned in the book. But you also got to understand that they were grafted onto a population that was essentially derived from Northwest Africa and the Nile Valley and other parts of Africa and the Mediterranean. They were grafted onto a already multicultural population. Okay, 1703, Martin, easy to name. Read it. Look up on archive.org. It's there. And I mean, again, I've got it on page 109 in the book, and I talk about it there. So I just want to remind people, sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more. So sometimes if someone says, oh, I'm going to debunk this, you are just trying to make and steal our history. It's like, no, brother. 1703, I read this book. It's written in 1703, page 109. What's going on, brother? Can you flip the question? Say, what's going on? Can you explain this? How would you explain this? He talks about black, brown, and white inhabitants. And he goes by island to island to island. And he says they're divided into 7 tribes. And you throw that back to the person that's trying to debunk you. Or trying to, if it's your lecturer, if it's whoever, you know what I mean? And it says, oh, no, can't be. We would have known this if it. No, you only know it if you read. You only know it if you educate yourself. You only know it if you're not racist and you're able to absorb all sorts of information and then have the intellect to interpret it. Do you get me? We're not trying to prove once we were kings, no. We know we were kings. We don't need to prove that. But I'm flipping the question. I'm saying, where are you from? Do you know your history? Can you explain? I'm the anthropologist now. Do you get me? I'm the anthropologist, so the black person is now the anthropologist saying, can you tell me where you're from, please? Because this book in 1703 says this. Ask your friends, say, what's that? Does that mean you're mixed then? Because can you explain it? It's not for me to explain, you explain. This is your past, this is your history, this is stuff that's written down. I don't have to go to like Scotta, who was daughter of Pharaoh and stuff like that, because they'll say, oh, debunked, that's just a story. Really? But skin color is such a sensitive thing in white society, because they know they are not all white. Do you get me? That's the funny thing. They're all different shades. They're all different ethnicity. They're all different phenotypes. All different phenotypes. Hiding under a label called white. It's kind of convenient, isn't it? Do you get me? So race is a social construct. And you know what? How do they feel? And how do they interpret data like that? You know? If you're a school kid in Scotland now and you're reading that, and it's like, because I've spoken to people in real life and they said, you know what? Grandma, I think she's an Australian Aborigine because this, and and this, and that. And it's like, that's indigenous people saying, oh, granddad used to have thick hair and stuff. And there's no such thing as homogeneous people. Race is a social contract. They're all different. They all came from different places. You saw Flemish. How many came? 500,000. And people before that, 2,000 years ago, a whole bunch of people from Egypt, a whole bunch of people from Morocco, a whole bunch of people from Mauritania, a whole bunch of people that descended from the Neolithic were still here, and the Bronze Age. It's a huge melting pot. And some people don't like it because they want to make up a race as a social construct, and they want to be on top. You don't like it because I'm on top right now and I'm classified as white, and therefore that means I'm on top and you're kind of down there and you mustn't. No, that's made up. That's bullshit. Okay? This is about understanding the evidence, and then how does that sit with people who are against multicultural or multiple identities or multiple skin colors and multiple phenotypes. How do people are not comfortable with that? In other words, that means they're not comfortable with black. But that's their problem. Just want to get that out there. Want to have some fun with that. You know what I mean? Think about it. 1703. That's yesterday. What's the genetic memory for that then? How do those current populations feel? Because they remember grandma was dark-skinned and all that kind of stuff. So you got to think, how do they process it? How were they colonized in the Western Isles? Okay, quick. How were they colonized? We had the Highland clearances. What's that, you might ask? That's when they were all kicked off their land. They were all made to starve, kicked off their land. You had different islands which were intentionally depopulated. The language became at risk of extinction. Okay, I get it. Same thing that happened to African countries happened within the British Isles. And I'll leave you with that thought. Stay tuned for more independent research from Ibrahim.